What's up, ladies and gents, Noah here, and welcome to another Payday 2 video. This is another Scarface DLC video. I'm using stuff from both the character pack and the heist, but this here is my Scarface build, which is all about recreating the Tony Montana character and personality within Payday 2, while also making good use of the Kingpin Perk deck, which is the most active and probably interesting perk deck we have seen in a very long time. It's not the best on the hardest difficulties, but it definitely still has its uses, and I'm actually quite fond of it. I'm going to try and do this video in a slightly different way to the way I've done build videos in the past. Instead of spending 15 to 20 minutes just staring at this page and walking you through things, I'm going to try and walk you through the build and the weapons as quickly as possible, and then get in a little more detail about important skills and the pros and cons of the perk deck and the weapons once I step into the gameplay. It's going to be quite difficult for me to get away from my old habits, but I'll do my best to try and make the gameplay entertaining and let you see as much gameplay as possible with this build. So starting things off, as I said, the Kingpin Perk deck, meaning our throwable, is changed to the injector. While it does say ×1, the injector uses are unlimited, so don't worry about that. Set 6 I have over here is my Scarface build, and this build is all about trying to buff up the assault rifle, my little friend, and also trying to get yourself as tanky as possible to get the greatest amount of use out of Kingpin, because of course the healing factor concerned with that. So I start things off with stable shot, moving up to marksman, all about getting my assault rifle, which is a single fire assault rifle in its base form, as powerful and as functional as possible. Rifleman, always been a big fan of snap to zoom in first-person shooters, a faster snap to zoom that is, and then aggressive reload. This is going to be a really useful skill, and you'll see it in the gameplay. The Commando 101 has quite a slow reload speed, so when you get a killing headshot with your primary weapon and switch to that, the reload will be halved, which is incredibly useful, and the animation actually looks quite funny. The big points are all in Enforcer, because Enforcer is of course all about trying to tank up as much as possible, so we go Resilience, Die Hard, which is useful, though I would like Die Hard to synergize with Kingpin. It doesn't. What I'd like to see as a change to the Kingpin perk deck, potentially in an update, though this may not be feasible, is that you take healing based off the standard damage input. So you take healing based off the damage coming out of the enemy's guns, not the damage you receive. That would definitely make Die Hard a much more useful skill here, but it still has its own use. The problem is you will not really... you're reducing the amount of health you're getting when you pop your injector while interacting with objects. But you know, Die Hard's still a good skill, as I said. So it's worth picking up here anyhow, and you can of course pop the injector while you're interacting with things, and that does have its uses at times. Transporter, any tanky build, I like this particular skill, it's pretty standard. Bullseye, really useful. You want to keep your armor up as much as possible. You want to keep yourself with some existing armor in order to improve what Kingpin is all about when it comes to health regen. Shock and Awe, armor recovery rate, and Iron Man. Scavenger, Bullet Storm, this is a skill I'm going to get into more details about. I've always loved it. It was buffed, of course. It was changed so that it works when you pick up the ammunition. But let me just say, its synergy with both weapons, most notably the Commando 101 rocket launcher, is a big deal. Extra lead. One of your main problems on this build is going to be ammunition, of course there's synergy there with Bulletstorm, and then finally fully loaded. The ammo capacity is going to affect the rocket launcher as well, giving you 8 overall rockets, which is actually quite a big difference, 2 additional rockets, and of course moving up to 50 overall ammunition in our pretty ammo sparse primary. Technician, hardware expert, it's a useful enough skill, and then steady grip again, just buffing the weapon accuracy and stability up as much as I possibly can. If you don't choose to go for aggressive reload over here, you could just as easily choose surefire for its usage on your primary weapon. However, I feel this would be more useful if I wasn't using the Commando as my secondary and was maybe using an SMG as my secondary weapon. Ghost, as ever, I like duck and cover and parkour. Duck and cover specifically, parkour is really not as useful in these tanky builds because it's 10% on a lower overall movement speed, but it still has enough usefulness for me to pick it up for its utility. And then finally, Fugitive, a couple of pretty useful skills. 9 lives has been so good since it's been at the bottom of this particular skill set, definitely worth picking up. Swan Song, also great always fantastic with your high-powered weapons like your rocket launcher and like your primary single-fire assault rifle, because you will not deplete ammunition for 9 seconds, which means when you do get down, you can basically clear everyone around you. And then having feigned death gives you that 45% chance when you have both to be instantly revived, which procs more than you would expect. And because I do a lot of stuff solo, and a lot of this gameplay you'll see will be solo mayhem difficulty, feigned death is a fantastic skill for that. Martial arts, really, really useful, especially for someone like me who likes to melee, and pumping iron. And the reason I've gone for these two, there might be other skills you think, hey, these aren't really worth all the points I put into them. I mean, let's see, there's 10 points going into here. You know, you could always ace out fully loaded, or maybe throw them in high value target or ammo efficiency. The reason I go for these is because I want to get more use out of the Lumberlight L2 chainsaw, because this weapon is awesome. I really like it. However, on its own, it's just nowhere near as good as the katana, so it's not enough of a pull factor for you to pick up the character pack DLC, but I do want to show it off because those stats are really interesting. If it had a slightly shorter charge time, it would definitely be a really top tier melee weapon. Talking of top tier though, the Commando 101 rocket launcher is fantastic. It's got that mag size of 4, which means it synergizes so much better with things like Swan Song and Bullet Storm. Total ammo at 10 thanks to our skill setup. The rate of fire at 60 is just enough. This weapon will fire really quickly for you to give that 5,000 damage into some real DPS, especially into bulldozers. Ideal for mayhem difficulty, which is what we're playing at. And again, 8.4 second reload time. That is so lengthy, so frustrating, but you can cut that in half to a 4.2 as long as you're making good use of your headshot reload bonus. Little Friend assault rifle, love this weapon, love the grenade launcher underbarrel attachment on it. I'm going to get into more detail about that in the gameplay, but I feel like the ammo pickup on it is completely broken. It feels overly self-sustaining, but we go for the competitor's compensator here. Big fan of this if you're looking not for damage but for other stats, accuracy and stability specifically. Stability boost, just to boost it up to 92, 92, those are really good numbers. No custom, Wolf HUD, no need. The LED combo, I have found that the laser module is really useful on this weapon. I've always found that to be the case with single fire weapons, firing from the hip. And then I don't bother with a sight because the iron sights are so good on this weapon. Of course, ammo bag and an improved combined tactical vest. It's all about being tanky to make use of Kingpin, and we need the ammo for both of our weapons because they're so ammo hungry. There we go, let's get into some gameplay. So considering last time it took me about 16.5 minutes to record that commentary, and a time when I tried to cut it down and make it more of an explanation just of what I'm using, I might actually do it in 7 minutes 30 or just over. I'm actually quite proud of myself for that one. And that's why this particular section of the video, where you guys get to watch some lovely gameplay, I'm going to run you through the important things to note about this build. And I'd say first of all a disclaimer that I threw at the start of the video when I first recorded it, but I'm putting in now, is the Kingpin Perk deck is not very good on 1 down or to some extent, and a lesser extent, Death Wish. It does work fine on Death Wish, but any of the difficulties where you take a absolute ton of incoming damage, the Kingpin Perk deck is not great for, because while it gives you those active health resistances in that damage you take is converted back into health, essentially you're still going to die because the health you're getting back is not equal to the damage you're taking, and on those difficulties you take such a large quantity of health damage so quickly. Bear in mind we only have 230 health, you're just going to get 2-shot. And even with the effect active on 1 down, I found myself dying to just a few guards. That's how not suited the Kingpin Perk deck is for that difficulty. If anything, it's just a 25% armor boost, which is, you know, not bad, but other perk decks give you a lot more. So it's not suited for 1 down. They'd need to change a fair few things, change how resistances work with Kingpin Perk deck in order to make it a viable 1 down perk deck. Now, Death Wish, it's not too bad for. You do still have the same problem. You do still have to play a lot more cautiously. You have to make sure you have armor if you're going out there for a heal, and you just have to try and get out of the situations where you're popping it to keep you alive, because on overkill difficulty, for example, you can pop it with no armor in a really dire situation and the DPS will not be enough. While the harder the difficulty, the more healing you're going to receive, you're just going to die. I mean, there's no better way to really explain it to you. That is the the downfall of the Kingpin Perk deck, and if I'm honest, when I originally read about it, I thought it would give you 100% damage resistance over the period. It was going to be a 6-second damage reduction that I didn't know whether it was going to be limited in terms of uses, but I knew it would be useful in that you'd be healing but taking no damage. Instead, you're healing but you're taking armor damage, or you're taking health damage greater than what you're healing. So it's okay, it's not bad, and I do love the fact you do actually have to press a button to use it, but it is not ideal, as I said, for those difficulties where you take crazy amounts of damage. So I do recommend you play around with it. I do think it's a ton of fun. I'm a huge fan of public enemy number 1, which means that enemies nearby will prefer targeting you. It's the first taunt in the game, and I do feel like the RPG elements in Payday are deep enough now that a taunt is going to be really necessary in some situations. Taunting them away from your teammates who's reviving another teammate, so cool, so necessary. And do keep in mind, as far as this perk deck is concerned, I didn't run you through it, but the injector will give you that 75% damage reduction for 6 seconds, and it will recharge every 30 seconds, but it starts its recharge once you press the button, which means that it's actually only a 24-second recharge rate. So the recharge rate is actually really good, and thanks to right to the top, you can actually increase that recharge rate when you're at full health and use it again more for a resistance-based option. And the idea is it's giving you more usage out of it, even when you're not using it to heal, and that's why right to the top has that for 5 points. For every 5 points of health gain during the injector effect, while at maximum health, the recharge time of the injector is reduced by 1 second, and it can basically be reduced by 15 seconds during that time, meaning you have it up almost every 10 seconds, as long as you're using the perk deck really actively and you're making sure you're taking damage while recharging your armor with something along the lines of Bullseye. So, as I said, the Kingpin Perk deck is fun. You have to think about it. It just doesn't work in certain situations, and it's one of those interesting ones where in the DLC it's such a new thing. I know a lot of people will want to mess around with it. However, it's by no means meta shaping for Payday 2. The next thing I'm going to talk about is the Lumber Light, because this weapon's stats look pretty fantastic. That damage of 60 base with 400 fully charged, that's with the melee skills I have on currently, is pretty interesting, because a fully charged swing of that, 400 damage, if you couple it with other multipliers you can get if you go for melee options, it's some crazy damage. You're looking at one-shotting cloakers in a number of situations. So yeah, I do think the Lumber Light's interesting, but the 4-second charge time, as I did briefly mention, is what's really tearing this weapon apart, and also the fact that it's got very limited concealment, 25 concealment. Makes sense, it's a chainsaw. Who the hell is bringing a chainsaw into a bank and isn't going to commit some sort of mass murder? But the problem is, this would be a fantastic critical melee weapon with those kind of stats, but it's just not an option, because 25 concealment is just not good enough for a concealment style build melee weapon. The Commando 101 rocket launcher is so awesome. I'm a massive fan of it. As I said I would mention, Bulletstorm's synergy alongside both weapons, because they're both big damage dealers, is huge, especially the Commando 101. I recommend you run this thing with 10 total ammo. You shoot out 9 shots of that 10 total ammo, so you just have 1 remaining to fire out. You replenish from your ammo bag with Bulletstorm, and you then fire for a fair few seconds without interruption, without using any ammunition at all, without having to reload. You can clear out 50% of the entire map with this weapon, with that strategy. I am a massive fan of it. I've always loved it. It's always been a big part of, if you guys remember my original crit minigun build, being able to shoot infinitely for a brief period of time and just wipe out the map. That's what you do here, but with more explosions and with much better special killing. It's phenomenal. That's the Commando, basically. That's it in a nutshell. It does good damage, good AoE, great crowd control, good at taking out specials. Really like it. It doesn't fit as well into this build as I'd like it to, because I've got a lot of skills that would be massively benefiting something like a single-fire SMG, like the UMP, like I've tried out in other builds. But with Scarface, I'm not going to bring the rocket launcher, am I? You know, sometimes a build is more about theming than it is about viability, and that's kind of the idea here. Like I said, the skills are fantastic. I'm really happy with how these skills synergize, and they do work well with the perk deck, but you could definitely maybe switch up a couple of skills, go Anarchist, and go all the way up in the fugitive skill tree and get Frenzy, use a different secondary, and this build may overall be more effective, but you won't feel the same Tony effect you're trying to go for with this particular character pack and build, and by no stretch of the imagination is it weak. The Little Friend Assault Rifle is one I do really want to talk about. For those of you unaware, to get the underbarrel attachment out, you just have to press 4, I believe. It actually took me a really long time to work that one out. I was a bit slow. But the underbarrel grenade launcher is really good. Its damage isn't insane, but it's so good at taking out shields. It's so good at taking out crowds, and I feel like it's a bit broken. I feel like it has the same ammo resupply rate. I don't know whether this has been patched out as of the time you're watching this, or maybe I'm just wrong and it just has crazy ammo pickup, but I feel it has the same ammo pickup as the regular weapon, meaning it's basically self-sustaining forever. A single kill and you'll basically get a single grenade back. And while the reload time is a little bit lengthy for the reload of the underbarrel grenade, which I think is good, I think that's good balancing, because otherwise this weapon would be insanely overpowered. It's already pretty good with that underbarrel grenade launcher. And that's not even mentioning the fact that this does 170 damage per bullet, with 50 overall ammo with the build I have on. 612 rate of fire, again, that's basically as fast as you guys are going to be clicking your mouse. Even with the fastest trigger finger, you're gonna be probably pumping out that kind of rate of fire with that damage. And again, the synergy with things like Swan Song and Bullet Storm is fantastic. Bullet Storm and Swan Song also has really good synergy with the grenade launcher, by the way. You can fire it pretty much freely with complete abandon and wipe out, again, the enemies that took you out. If you don't really feel you have the swap time to whip out your massive rocket launcher, which is currently staring me in the face. Yeah, really fond of the Little Friend Assault Rifle. I've always liked the single fire weapons, and I feel like this is one of the better ones, especially with the iron sights it's got. Massive fan of those iron sights. They're really nice. With the utility it's got, it's the first assault rifle that has that sort of Death Wish viability that I've always talked about, where you need a weapon that blows off bulldozers' masks, and especially if you're building like this with the injector throwable, you don't have like dynamite or just a regular frag grenade to blow bulldozers back, to knock away shields, to take them out. You have that underbarrel grenade launcher. I really like the way Overkill thought about this and synergized the Little Friend with the Kingpin Perk deck, and that is pretty awesome. So as you can see, a lot of destruction going on in the gameplay. I'm a massive fan of the heist. I'm a big fan of the character pack. The voice acting, he's a Cuban. I'm actually impressed by the quality of the Cuban accent and voice acting. I'm not overly impressed by his similarity to the original Tony Montana, but his lines are impeccable. I'm a big fan of that. The whole style behind this DLC is it's there. It's definitely there. I'm really chuffed to see that the safe house room that was previously locked is now open and is now Scarface's room, and that's beautifully ornate, again, in the style of this black, red, gold, white we see here in Scarface's mask. Big fan of the DLCs. Kind of ended up being a mini review this. Yeah, I do recommend them. I think because, admittedly, the Little Friend and the Commando 101 are a little bit meta-changing. They're definitely really top-tier weapons. Maybe not one down difficulty top-tier, but definitely Death Wish top-tier weapons. So some people, those of you really into keeping your builds and weapons relevant and having fun at the same time, may want to consider picking these DLCs up right now. That's how much I have enjoyed them. But other than that, I do recommend them. Definitely try and grab them when they go on sale, because it oozes style, it oozes viability and fun. And even the perk deck, I've complained about the Kingpin, but it works in this build. It works great for Mayhem. It's really stompy for Overkill. You're never going to go down if you've got the Kingpin perk deck, but Overkill's so easy now. We're really looking above and beyond that to those harder difficulties. Anyway, ladies and gents, I'm going to leave you with the remaining gameplay. I hope you have enjoyed this video. Let me know if you enjoyed the style of this video more, which was meant to show off more gameplay and then be a bit more casual in the commentary and analysis of the skills we do choose to use. Let me know if you have any other amendments for this build, any of the Scarface builds you guys have thought up. And I'll see you in the next one. I've got some really exciting mod videos coming out for Christmas, guys, and also one to do with Overwatch for those of you interested in that game, as I am. Thanks again. See you in the next one.